Maybe you don't see your current situation as an opportunity. Let me assure you, op is written all over it. You have a chance to make a difference. Feel weak, stuck? Ask the Lord to grow you, show you. When we're growing, those around us are growing too. Today's journal entry for this series will be entry 4. I'm so glad you're here. If you missed yesterday's entry, there will be a link in the upper right hand corner of this video. If you are new here, my name is Ashley Murphy. I'm an artist and author, among being a wife and a mother, using my gifts and my daily life to communicate with the world how valuable you are. It's my greatest desire to remind you, you are made to shine. Shine your light of influence out into the world. Today's entry, I began with a piece of pattern that I cut out and Mod Podged it, and began adding other pieces that I picked out prior to filming. I did this to help with the flow of filming, but later on in the series you will see where I spend a little more time picking through stuff, and so you can experience that actual process. But I will tell you that on this particular page, I began noticing a little momentum in my creative process picking up. The whole thought process when I made this actual journal was me picking papers that were more neutral, what I would consider neutral, like brown paper bag, white, plain denim, lace, black, gray, silver. But before I go any further about building momentum, I want to point out, if you recognize how I laid out each piece on this page before I actually used the Mod Podge to glue them in place. This is usually a pretty every step process for me whenever I am creating journal pages. I will gather the pieces that I'm going to use on my journal page, or if I'm creating on a canvas, and then I will work with them and position them in the place that I think that they will be glued down. So it gives me an idea of when I actually do glue them down. But I will tell you, sometimes whenever I go back to glue them in the place that I thought they were going to be, they don't always end up right back there. But for the most part, I have to have somewhat of a game plan. So I hope that little tip encourages you as you journal. So going back to building momentum, I went over the fact of the pages that I put in this journal when I actually made it. So that was my thought process of whenever I actually started getting ready to glue things on the pages for the journal, is to kind of stick within that color scheme of more neutral. But as I began carrying on, I realized I was ready to work some color in to these pages, mainly because, well, I'm having to admit, and that's one thing I've learned through this journal, is I'm not totally a neutral artist. I've learned through this process adding sprinkles of more color here and there is my style. I did begin to recognize on this page that the colors that I was using was becoming a theme already through the journal. I think back to the very first page that I did in this journal where it had orange, and then to the second page it even had orange again, which was different shades of orange. And then whenever I move on to the third page, there are very faint speckles of orange on there, like through the washi tape that I used with the dots, and through the map also. So what I noticed then moving on to this page that we are currently viewing is I grabbed colors that were from the page previously, which would be the kind of turquoise looking color, came from the washi tape that was used on the page before, and also on the stamp that's used there at the top right of that page has yellow, which those colors would have came from the map and what have you from the page previous, as well as the blue in the stamp. I hope that that makes sense to you. But my point of saying all of that, and let me just tie it with this and maybe you can understand it a little better. It's like from this point on, I begin working, and each time I start a new page, I think about the colors that stand out in the page previous, and I try some way to tie them in so this journal kind of flows evenly. Working with the strings on this tag was actually a little fun, even though it's taken me a little longer to get it in place. I did enjoy working with this particular kind of string, so if you see yourself as wanting to try to incorporate string into one of your journal pages, I think it would be a wise decision to do that. It could be any color, shape, or size. This particular journal could go either way of leaving these pages the way they are, and it strictly be a journal finished and complete this way, or at the end of the process or along the way, you could always use faint smears of light paint around the edges of the pages, or like a dye to kind of distress or age the pages. I can tell you by the end of completing this journal through the filming process of this series, I have come to the conclusion that that is something that I think that I might want to do long term. If you would like to see me do that at the end of this series, please let me know and maybe we could work that out.